hexagonal church. It's a very pretty church. It was built by an Italian architect called Barlucci. When we are in Jerusalem, in the Garden of Gethsemane, over there is another Barlucci church. Each one of them is very, very spectacular and adapted, to the site and where we are. Down here in the valley, this is what's the important thing. Down in the valley is an open area. I'm not going to do it now, you can hardly see anything, but anyway, down below, later on when we drive down, you will see that opening. This is like an open theater, and there Jesus could talk. Several years ago, somebody made an experiment and tried to stand over there, and the acoustics was overwhelming. So, I don't know if it was there, but we can assume it was down here below. Alright? So, Jesus is gathering, hundreds and thousands are coming to listen to his blessings. Pastor, please.
Okay. So, again, I just want to connect some dots for you. What's the Sermon on the Mount all about? So, one of the things that happens with the Jewish people when they went into captivity is they began to think among themselves that the reason that we're in captivity is because we're not living according to God's law. So, that's how various groups, especially the Pharisees, the synagogue came out of the captivity. And one of the things that they wanted to do is they said, you know what, we're going to give it our best to live according to God's law. And they were very strict about trying to do that to the point of, it was exaggerated. So the truth of the matter is, what was the law all about? Why did God give the law? Did God give the law because he actually expected us to be able to do it? No. The law, yes, we should. But the law was given to us to show us that we couldn't keep the law. That's why first the law is given, and then the tabernacle, the instructions for the tabernacle. So think about the instructions for the tabernacle are, here's what you do when you break the law. Right? So God anticipated the fact that we would not be able to give the law. So what Jesus does with the Sermon on the Mount essentially is to show the Pharisees that how fastidious they were in trying to keep the law. They still were not keeping the law. Why? Because it wasn't a matter of behavior or what you do. It was actually what was in your heart. That the law had to work from the inside out. And the idea of the law was for you to say, I can't do it. So that you would say, God, I need you to do it. Which was the whole goal. The whole goal was for God to dwell in us and for him to, through his power, to live out the law through us. So I've asked Tony and Linda to read, and you can just see what Jesus does is he takes the law and he makes it really clear. Anyone who reads the Sermon on the Mount will say, and I've had people say this to me over the years, they say, I can't do that. That's the purpose of the law, for you to say, God, I need your help. Okay. Yeah.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled.
Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God.
So you can see, God isn't saying you have to do this some of the time. He's saying you don't have to be like this all the time. And if you aren't, you're going to fall short. And that's why we need a Savior. One man describes the life of Jesus as a perfectly lived emotionally, mentally, relationally, and physical life. It's a life lived in absolute perfection. But here's what he says about the secret to his life is. He says, I'm always doing what the Father wants me to do. That's That's really the secret of life. That's why we need a Savior. And then one more part of it. A psychiatrist by the name of J.T. Fisher actually read through the Sermon on the Mount. Listen to what he said.
If you were to take the sum total of all authoritative articles ever written by the most qualified of psychologists and psychiatrists on the subject of mental hygiene, if you were to combine them and refine them and save out the excess verbiage, if you were to take the whole of the meat and none of the parsley, if you were to have these unadulterated bits of pure scientific knowledge concisely expressed by the most capable of living poets, you would have an awkward and incomplete summary of the Sermon on the Mount, and it would suffer immeasurably through comparisons. For nearly 2,000 years, the Christian world has been holding in its hands the complete answer to its restless and fruitless yearning. Here rests the blueprint for successful human life, with optimal mental health and contentment. All the fruits of the Spirit, Galatians 5, 22 and 23, are different expressions of love. Love, joy, is love rejoicing. Peace is love resting. Patience is love awaiting. Kindness is love responding. Goodness is love initiating. Faithfulness is love keeping its word. Gentleness is love empathizing. And self-control is love resisting temptation.
And right in the center of the Sermon on the Mount, here's what Jesus said. You know, the secret of the Sermon on the Mount is the same as Matthew 22, 37 through 39. How do you live up to the law? Love God and love others. But again, you have to say, the conclusion of that, the right conclusion is, I can't do that. But because of Christ, not only do I have a model, I actually have His power inside of me so that I can do what I can never do on my own. That's what the Sermon on the Mount is meant for, to drive us to God. Okay?
Right. So we'll go a little